Hello everyone and welcome back to Fleet's Random Ramblings, and as punishment for my hubris, some of you may have seen the YouTube description. So, as punishment for my hubris and certain other things that I'm going to force people to do this evening, I have decided that I will answer any alternate history question put before me today. Whether it's good, bad, or ugly.
I'd say this is hubris as the answer to your previous statement.
Do I Christianize now? Or do I wait till I can take England?
Hi.
Take England.
Anyway. So anyway, so for those of you who are involved in the old
Error, Fleet not responding. Please terminate program.
Not the Earth Dragon. That tends to fix him when he's rehabilitated like this.
Seriously, you okay there, Fleet?
Yeah, I'm fine. So, but obviously, first things first, as per usual. We gotta get to the.
Oh, right, we're tyrant, yeah.
We gotta get to the Foxo. Could we maybe focus on the,
What?
the show that you're currently sitting on the board for?
There's a show going on?
Walked right into that one.
Timu Locker asks on.
Sorry, go on. I promise not to go full goblin mode.
Please.
Out.
So, Timu Locker on Patreon asks, what's the scariest amusement park ride you've been foolish enough to board, and did you get off with your soul, stomach, and trousers all still where they belonged? I don't ride scary rides. I ride thrill rides, but those are ones I wanted to board rather than was forced to board, because that would kind of imply that I didn't want to ride it and was egged onto. I don't think there's any rides I can think of that I've ever actually had that done to me when I wasn't a kid. And those were rides I turned out to actually love once I was on them. So... And after that, they're not scary, so it doesn't really... I mean, I suppose Nemesis Subterra at Alton Towers when that was running. Then again, I was very young. And dark rides really aren't my thing. And I didn't really ride it again because I had no wish to. But I suppose that could technically be classed as it. I guess. That's the only thing I could really think of. But everything else have been rides I've wanted to ride or have enjoyed after the fact. If that makes sense.
So you're not in my situation.
Well, I suppose it is a question to the panel, so...
Most amusement park rides are special roller coasters. I can't go on.
She's too small.
Oh.
It's not that. It's that it shouldn't really be a secret that my health is fucked.
This as well, but in actual fact, it's because she's small.
That must be fun.
It'd probably be easy to lift what works in me rather than what doesn't.
Nope.
We're at Anubis levels though.
Nope, I'm not gonna make
No,
that joke.
if you were Anubis's levels, that would be more concerning.
I was gonna make a joke, and I decided against it, and I'm very glad that I did. Because as funny as it would have been, I would have been, well, dead.
Hung, drawn, and quartered.
Not quite that level, but...
Rendered into chunky salsa.
Not...
Anyway.
Anyway, so...
Similar vein, never really been on a scary ride, though. The only ones I'm glad... Though I've got ones I'm glad I never did go on, despite people trying to make me go on it.
Like?
If anyone, what's it called? Lightwater Valley, if people are familiar with it. A certain ride called the Ultimate. Every single time I had been to Lightwater Valley, either within a week before or a week prior, it killed someone. So that was one of where I was very right to go, no, that's dangerous. You don't go on that.
Ironically enough, I rode Smiler before and after its accident, and I felt fine. Anyway, so the next question. Let's see what we have. Okay, Bummill Boy on YouTube asks, "What if France wins the Franco-Prussian War?" Well, given that you've said they've won it rather than the
Which
how,
one?
so
Quickly, which one?
the Franco-Prussian War, the Franco-Prussian. There's only one Franco-Prussian War.
Isn't there technically two?
No, there's only
There's
one.
two.
No, there's one. There's the one in 1871. If France wins that, I mean, hooray, we've got the Second Empire continuing, which is something. It'll be a more stable polity than the Republic, and probably a lot more competent militarily. If the... I don't think it's going to derail German unification. Arguably losing that war may serve Bismarck's cause as well. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if the wily old bastard had a contingency for that exact circumstance. I don't think it's going to lead to... which is going to lead to the weird case of the French Empire and the German Empire staring at each other. Although this will be a French Empire that retains Alsace-Lorraine. So... gonna be weird.
Not quite. I'm just looking at the wiki, one of the wiki articles on Napoleon III. So, see, we're talking about the Second French Empire, aren't we? Which is Napoleon III.
Yeah, that's right, Napoleon III, the man who thought he was the equal of his great uncle, but
Yeah,
really,
who wanted
really
to
wasn't.
push France's border to the Rhine. Use the Rhine as a natural border for France.
I mean, that is France's
And if he wins,
natural
and he
border,
can drive Prussia off
the Rhine,
the
which he
French
could
side
do,
of the Rhine.
which he could do, to be fair. He would have the clout to do that if he won.
Yeah, if he... we know how much we get through the Second Empire. You probably wouldn't have Prussia forming Germany.
I think you probably would, given the... well, you probably have a formation of Germany, but it might be a more empire of equals under the Hohenzollerns rather than rather than what it was historically.
Yeah, Bavaria's and a lot of the southern German states entrance into the North German Confederation to form the Empire of Germany, right? That comes after the Franco-Prussian War. And that was all based on those states wanting Prussian protection and not to be on the bad side of Prussia. Prussia gets its teeth kicked in to the point where it's lost Cologne, which is where Napoleon III wanted to put the border on the Rhine. Then Bavaria has less reason to look to Prussia over Austria for protection. So if Bavaria doesn't look towards Austria for protection,
The thing is,
you don't get Germany as we know it.
The thing is, Bavaria was already involved in the Franco-Prussian War, Bear in mind, a lot of the South German states fold themselves in under the North German Confederation, which already exists at this point as a
Yeah.
state during the Franco-Prussian War. And I don't think they're going to... And especially if the French have pushed themselves then to their Napoleonic-era borders, then I don't think you're going to see them separate. I think you won't have the German Empire, but you might have, instead of the North German Confederation, just the German Confederation. It won't be an empire, but what it will be is a semi-unitary state.
You see, the thing is, I can see that, yes, but a lot of but especially the South German states with the Northern Confederation were much more of allies and satellites over actual members. They don't officially join and adopt and swear suzerainty till after. And the King of Bavaria doesn't want to do it, but he knows if he doesn't, the Prussia's going to come down and fuck him up. If Prussia's had its teeth kicked in hard enough that it's lost quite a chunk of its economy, because the Rhine and West Germany is the valuable part in this point still. Yeah. Because even at this point, the Catholics, especially how Bismarck set it up, with stuff like the enforcement of taxes on Catholic churches in southern Germany, but in Catholic parts of North Germany, the Catholic South Germans don't like that, and it's one of the big stingers for Bavaria actually joining itself. And yeah, Bismarck alienates a lot of the South German states and uses the Franco-Prussian War as a you play ball and you join us, or we come down there and we kick your teeth in.
Which you now can't do. You're probably going to see the
Which you
South
now can't do.
Well, but you are still going to have a little bit of reverberation, since the North German Confederation could still be reformed into a German Empire with those borders. Given South Germany's South Germany's leanings towards Austria, and being very much less linked culturally and lingually to the idea of a unified German state, you could get away with feasibly doing that.
Yeah, but the issue with that is the homogenization of German culture comes after German unification.
No, I know. This is why you see. This is why I'm saying it's more likely to happen, because you're going to get two German cultures. You're going to get South German culture, which is based around the culture of the independent states that still exist, probably under Bavarian protection, and then you're going to get North German culture, which is German imperial culture under the German Empire, which is what we would recognize as the unified German culture.
Yeah, and you're also going to see a lot less German settlements in Poland and East Prussia.
Probably.
Because the Prussians exported a lot of dissidents into Poland. German Poland.
Yeah.
To settle and Germanize the land. Okay, that also fucks with Austria's game plan as well, doesn't it?
Not necessarily. The Austrians and the Russians are happy indeed, because as far as they're concerned, while the European status quo hasn't been established, well, first of all, there's no French Republic to deal with, which was always something that everyone didn't really like.
Yeah, but you have a French Empire.
Yes, but it's a French Empire that has behaved as a responsible power compared to the Empire under Napoleon I. The Empire,
until kicked the major powers' teeth in.
Well, yes,
yeah, and,
ye-
and
ye-
this is
yes,
still
yes, yes,
Napoleon III we're talking about here.
yes, it
But-
did. Yes, it did. But I will point out that basically everyone knew that Bismarck was scheming shit. Everyone fucking knew. But unfortunately, the way he schemed it was in such a way that you couldn't really act against it without looking stupid to the general public. Whereas now everyone's going, well, you
You
schemed.
can.
Whereas now everyone's going, well, you schemed and you got your shit kicked in. Big fucking whoop. The French just took the borders back to the Rhineland. They didn't puppet you. They didn't fucking do things to your fucking thing. Just sit down and shut up. You lost a fucking war.
But Europe is going to be going, oh, here we go again.
Now Napoleon.
There's like, don't forget, Austria had a little bit of tussle with Germany a few years beforehand. The only reason why Austria didn't care at that stage is because they realized they could just look towards the Balkan territories instead of, fighting Germany in German-speaking states.
Yeah, and
But if
Silesia.
Prussia gets teeth kicked in,
Yeah,
Austria now suddenly has the means and the power to be like, hang on a minute.
Give me Silesia back, bitch. We still hold the ducal title for Silesia.
I don't think they're going to
So
start a
get
war
your
over
Prussian ass
Silesia.
out of here.
I don't think they're going to start. Yeah, it's one thing for the French to beat them. Even in their weakened state, the Prussians or North Germans could easily turn around and slap Austria 6 ways from Sunday in the 1870s. There is no great.
That depends.
There is no great.
That depends
power.
on the condition and when he's doing when they're doing it.
It doesn't matter. Even if the Prussians would have to basically be rendered completely fucking incapable of fighting anybody for the Austrians to have a chance. If they're even minorly in a state to defend themselves, the Austrians get their teeth kicked in. The Austrian army was and basically remained in a shocking state, basically for the entire period in the aftermath of the revolutions of 1848. It never basically recovered. They were always the weakest great power, to a point that there were points in the period from 1848 to 1914 where the Ottoman armies were better led, better trained, and better equipped.
Yeah. But that's not the issue I see with Prussia in this situation. Not even a couple of decades prior, I can't remember the exact date, they've had to have Russian help to put down the Polish revolt.
No, that was the other way around. There was a revolt in Russian Poland, and the Germans went to help them deliberately, both to ensure their own Poles didn't rise up and to get Russia on side. There wasn't a revolt in German Poland. Bismarck deliberately went to help the Russians because he knew it would curry favor with St. Petersburg, and it would send a signal to Poles in Germany. Sorry, Prussian Poles.
Yeah. But the fact of the matter is that Prussia recently has had to give up quite a few of its Polish territories. Because they take all the way past Warsaw after the third partition of Poland. That then gets transferred over to Russia at some point. I can't remember the exact date.
It was in the aftermath of the third partition. There was a whole series of border redrawings that happened.
Yeah.
And of course, the whole taking away of the Duchy of Warsaw, which was then handed to the Russians after the end of the Napoleonic Wars.
Yeah, but we're really in a period where because Bismarck's basically trying to culturally genocide the Poles, including forced decapitalization. To the point they've outlawed the Polish language. And Poland, by Germany's own measure, even the more Germanized western parts, are a ticking time bomb. That's not to mention the deplorable state of the Polish side of things, of the Russian side of things. And historically, there was localized revolts and stirrings in the Franco-Prussian War.
Well, yeah. Of course.
Agitations for an independent Poland.
I don't think the
Or at least
Germans.
Polish autonomy.
I get what you're saying, I do, but the Prussians have not been rendered that weak, and also the Russians would not want there to be a successful Polish uprising in Prussia. So in North Germany.
Why are we making the assumption that the Prussians were rendered military incapable?
Yeah, I'm wondering why.
Yeah,
We are
I-
talking
I'm-
about
yeah,
a Prussia
why-
that got its teeth kicked in all the way back to the Rhine.
Yeah, like I'm sorry, like that doesn't mean that the Prussian army is
Yeah,
destroyed. Just like
Yeah,
even
but-
though
but can I finish?
you can, but I don't
Even
like where
with
you're
the
going.
formation of Germany, the East and the Germanization of Poland was a forever war,
Well, yeah,
where it was
obviously.
a constant pain in the ass.
Well, yes.
And Prussia's just made itself. Prussia's just looked incredibly weak, getting its shit kicked in by France.
Yeah, there might be a major
France
revolt, but it's
who
going to be
was-
put down.
Until, yeah,
And that's,
What happens if during that revolt then Austria attacks?
They're not going to.
Yeah.
They can't.
They could.
They could. and then-
Theoretically
and they-
speaking, that it is a situation where you could have a death by 1,000 cuts.
Not really. The Austrian army could be dealt with by a contemptuously small part of the Prussian military. It's that bad.
I don't know, man. The Prussian army did have some victories during their tussle against the Prussians. It's just they lost a single battle very badly. That overshadowed everything else they did during the war.
Yeah,
That
that's
doesn't
true.
mean they are
That-
completely
It
rendered. utterly
didn't. No,
useless.
no, it didn't mean that when it was at that point. You're right, but a lot has changed since the Brothers' War, and yeah, the Austrian army in the early 1870s is in a really bad state. A really bad
Yeah.
state. Shockingly
And-
bad.
and so's the Prussian.
Not
If
really.
the Prussians have lost a war to France, they're not going to be in a good state either.
Especially 1870s France.
Yeah, I'm just gonna sit here and go, I'm sorry, are we all forgetting the French after the Franco-Prussian War? They weren't militarily destroyed. They were able to put down the Paris Commune, for God's sake.
Wow, they were able to take back a city from militia.
Quote unquote malicious and mob.
Yeah.
I feel like you're artificially weakening the Prussians far more than it would be.
I feel you're saying that also, yeah, like looking at it, you're saying, yes, 50,000 civilians versus 170,000 professional soldiers.
The point I'm making is that the French had 170,000 soldiers in the aftermath of losing almost catastrophically in a major
Yeah, that's
war.
the French.
There's no reason why the North German Confederation, given its state, even if they have lost similarly catastrophically, would suddenly not have an army or the robust system that supports it, especially given the way Prussia is.
Yeah, but the important thing about the North German Confederation, it is a confederation that is held together by the prestige and the military power of Prussia. Because states like Hamburg, the Kingdom of Hamburg, Saxony, they Hessen, they're there to because they don't like the Austrians, and because of the Napoleonic Wars, they've been subordinated to Prussia. Those kingdoms do not want to be subordinated to Prussia.
They don't really have a choice.
It's why
though.
Bismarck Gambit works, and he's able to make a national identity amongst the people, so that those kingdoms can't break away to their own thing, try and break away again. But it's fundamentally held together through the military might of Prussia. And Prussia's just got its teeth kicked in. It's gonna have so many issues on the home front. It's gonna be ridiculous.
I don't think so.
Because
I think
the
there'll be-
component kingdom of Prussia has not a much larger population than the rest of the kingdoms. It's got subordinated to it.
Like, how much would it take for just Moravia, Württemberg, and Baden just to go, deal with it yourself?
Or the fact that a lot of Northern West Germans saw themselves as saw themselves as their own thing and not Prussian.
They're
With
not.
a lot
It's
of
Chandler,
with a
they're
lot
not.
of Hanoverian culture being a lot more in common with Dutch than
Because
Prussian German.
Because if France is winning this war, do they actually sign the unification of Germany?
Well, no, they can't sign the unification of Germany as we know it. But I
But
don't
would
think
they
I don't
sign
think-
one at all?
I don't think the North German Confederation is going to break up. It's going to rumble for at
A
least
lot
10
of them
years.
didn't want to be part of it to begin with.
A lot of the leaders didn't want to be, but I guarantee you, among the people, there would be like, maybe if all of the
The people probably don't care as lot at the end of the day.
You're
Actually, no. But no, I get where you're coming from. But that rally around the flag and German formation of German identity, based on
Just
Prussian ideals, comes out of winning this war.
And
No,
the idea
you're not-
of
you're not-
a united,
you're not-
proud Germany
you're
would
not-
have got just shot if
You're not
the
hearing
biggest
me.
leader
you
of
didn't,
this
you
just went down.
You didn't let me finish, so you completely misread what I was saying. Can I finish?
No.
Basically, Bismarck can salvage this, but he's just got to completely pivot to a different angle. The only way this can be realistically salvaged, and he may not be able to pull it off, and I'm saying there is a way he could do it, is he basically has to leverage the people against the leaders who do not want to be part of a confederation. Basically saying that if we had been a more unitary state styled along the lines of Prussia, we could have won the war, but your leaders wouldn't let it happen.
Yeah.
There goes his job. Who's going to remove him, Channel Lord? Who's going to remove him? The Kaiser was fairly happy with him. And while
He's not going to lose his job.
And while this is a setback, I'm not going to... Don't get me wrong. While this is a setback, and it is a major setback for Prussia and the German states as a whole, let's not forget that states lose wars. This happens.
Yeah.
States
Prussia will
lose wars.
survive.
Fledgling uniting nations don't.
No, confederations
Nations.
don't tend to.
The
we've
Italians
unfortunately
are
seen
sat
that
there in the corner going, we did.
the Italians would like to say, well, all of us are shooting each other. No.
Yeah.
The Italians are one of the biggest cluster messes in Europe.
The Italians,
And I'd like to point
after-
out there's been 7 different Italian confederations since the Italian Wars.
No,
And it's only the last one that formed into a state.
Yes, but that the state fought numerous wars against Austria and didn't win after it was a state. And then it didn't break apart.
Yeah, but I think the biggest issue Bismarck's got is the fact that Bismarck, before this war, has gone on a very large campaign of Prussification in West Germany. He's enacted a large series of repressive laws against liberals and against a lot of what we'd call the bourgeoisie. And he's done stuff like seize control of the press, those sorts of things. And okay, for context, especially the Rhine and a lot of West Germany was very liberal. It's where a lot of liberal ideas and ideas of modern democracy come from.
I mean, that's very true, but
No, let me finish. Bismarck has done stuff like strip away their universities. He stripped away their minimum wage. a lot of the people in West Germany don't like him. And historically, he was able to clothe himself in glory and go, see, we beat France. It was justified. He's done all this to fight France and then lose.
I'm getting
His
to the
fight
stage where we
tax
really
race.
need to discuss how Prussia actually lost this.
Not really. Not really, since that would kind of that really, you know.
Yeah.
We can't really discuss how they lost this because then we'll be here all day.
Yeah, and it's sort
But
of,
we're going off. We're kind of really rambling off on a bunch of different.
assumptions.
Anyway, let's probably move
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
Either way, it's not a good time to be in Germany, basically.
It's not. Well, it's a good time to be in Germany. It's not a good thing to be in Poland.
Typical officer asks, can we rediscover the Teddy Roosevelt timeline where he ran for his third and eventually fourth term? Would the USA be better off than IRL, especially in the pre- and post-World War I era? How would the naval treaties look? Well, yes, the USA will be much better off. Roosevelt was a much better and more capable leader than Woodrow Wilson in basically every respect. And, you know, there's the whole not an outright racist bastard, which is a nice thing. And not fundamentally breaking the US political system by concentrating an aggressive amount of power under the president was never meant to have, which also Woodrow Wilson did, which fundamentally broke the US political system and it's never recovered. So, yeah. Yes, they would be significantly better. For one thing, the US is going into World War I at the first opportunity it gets, which, have fun.
bad.
Have fun. Wait, what do you mean it's bad? You can't just say it's bad and not explain yourself.
Because America spends the 3 years where it's not involved getting its shit together.
I mean, that is true.
Because the French army of 1914 is a fucking joke.
Well, yeah, but that's
Sorry,
fine.
not the French, the fucking
Well,
American army.
Well, yeah, but that's not...
World War One's a fucking joke.
Well, yes, that's fine, and no one's denying that, but here's the thing. I'm not denying that the US will need time to get ready, and I'm not denying that it won't arrive in the strength it does in 1917, as it does in 1917, earlier. What I am saying is that US entry into the war earlier does open some avenues that were not available to the Entente compared to normal. For one thing, it makes financing for the British a hell of a lot easier. You don't have a if nothing else, it makes financing a lot easier for the British. They can float the loans on Wall Street they were floating quite easily, even if the Americans don't join the war. You're not going to have Woodrow Wilson strangling Wall Street deliberately to bankrupt the British and the French, which is something he did, in order to try and force a peace on his terms. And if the US is in the war as early as, let's say, 1915, then you'll have access to proper American credit, not just loans floated by JP Morgan on Wall Street, which is going to massively ease the debt burden on Great Britain. Not so much on France and Russia, but on Great Britain. Now I don't expect I don't expect any commitment in force vis-a-vis US ground troops in any numbers that are going to matter any earlier than mid-1916. Because even with an impetus to get involved, Foxo is absolutely right. The US Army is in no state to really commit to the continent until, if it's rushing, earlier than mid-1916.
Yep.
Oh no, naval forces will begin the moment the starting gun fires. That's the one place where the US is actually mostly ready. They can they can quite easily attach themselves to the Grand Fleet with contemptuous ease, or move into the Med. No problems at all. No problems at all. The US has the battle wagons. They have the basic cruisers they need. Heck, in the Med they can commit in a hard way with their protected and armored cruisers. Those,
Yeah, funny joke.
No. I'm not joking.
They
I
could
mean-
indeed commit all of their cruisers.
Moe, remind us, how many do they actually have at this point?
Why would the Entente join the Central Powers? The people who they've literally been picking themselves up to fight. The Japanese. This is a golden opportunity for the Japanese. They get to work alongside the US and study them profusely. You better believe.
And also remember, a lot of the issues that come from Japan and America come post-war, not pre-war.
Yeah, it's important to bear in mind. You better believe that the there are a lot of Japanese who, whilst they may not be fond of the whole forced opening of Japan by Commodore Perry, it is something that they do. Commodore,
Not fond of it. Good God, that's doing a lot of heavy lifting.
No, it's quite funny. It's quite funny because on the one hand, as the person who's been to Japan and seen their side on it, they view the incident both with reverence and some hatred. Because on the one hand, yes, it, was a forced opening of their country and a violation of their thing, but without it, modern Japan just fundamentally would not be. And it was true back then as well. So there's going to be this weird mix of wanting to work with the Americans and also hating their guts.
It's gonna be painful for the Americans looking at it.
You're probably going to see a more balanced fleet build out as well. So you're not just going to see the Clemson Swarm or whatever swarm of destroyers they start building, and some US capital ships. You're probably going to see Roosevelt as something of a naval man himself, committing to actually building modern cruisers. Can the US help protect cross-Atlantic convoys? Absolutely.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely, it can.
Absolutely not. Not right now. Not in the state it was in.
Because going from 1916, they've got a grand total. If you go back to 1908, less than 40 maximum light ships.
That's not... Okay.
They got no destroyers.
Okay.
Yeah,
All their cruisers
okay.
are built before 1908.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. This is fun. Okay. The World War One convoy war and the trade war in Atlantic in general is not the Second World War. Whilst destroyers and light forces are useful, they are not the main assets used to defend convoys in this period. Auxiliary cruisers, corvettes and avisos, sloops, and older cruisers are what you would see. And of those, the US has them. In mobilizing the Coast Guard, it can get significant amounts of auxiliary cruiser assets that are and sloops that are perfectly viable for that work.
Please notice how I said modern light forces, not destroyers.
No, those are not modern
No,
light forces.
for defending a region the size of the American East Coast. Because by the mid to late World War One, G-boats were ranging out that far. Can we agree?
Some of them were, yes.
And a massive amount of American economic inaction at this time is shipping going down the East Coast.
Yes, that is something that's happening.
As Roosevelt had pointed out in the aftermath of the Spanish-American Wars, America doesn't have the light forces to protect its own coastline. So I would posit that the Americans, at least for the first couple of years, are going to be an active detriment in the convoy war.
I fundamentally
until they get that light force built out.
I fundamentally disagree for one simple reason. There is no convoy war till 1917. There are no convoys till 1917.
the Coast Guard doesn't exist until 1915.
But anyway, the point I'm making is they can quite easily throw more
Yeah,
assets
so not
into the.
Commerce War.
They can act.
That was
Yeah.
common.
Well, in that case, then I'd argue that they have enough assets to aid the Royal Navy in patrolling, which is the main way you counter U-boats in this period. If you're not giving them convoys to target, the way you get them is by actively patrolling and arguably getting lucky and jumping them on the surface.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's more shit doing that, and the US has more shit to do that, there are an awful lot of cruisers that, while they wouldn't stand a chance against modern adversarial cruisers, they are perfectly happy to tool around the North Atlantic at 12 to 14 knots and casually jump. I mean, you've got... Let's have a look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. You've got at least 20 light cruisers / scout cruisers you can get.
Mm-hmm.
The Chesters won't be around. They'll be seconded to whatever US commitment to the RN is happening. And you've got... what was it? Yeah, you've got...
You have about 20 cruisers. There were 20 protected cruisers and about 10 armored cruisers.
Yeah, the armored cruisers, the older armored cruisers, yeah, probably St. Louis. The St. Louis in particular are going to be quite good, but the newer ones are going to be seconded for work with the RN, possibly in the Mediterranean, depending on where they're needed.
Are we counting St. Louis an armored cruiser?
They are. They absolutely
It's semi-armored.
No, they are. The St. Louis's are armored
Right.
cruisers. No, they are. They absolutely are.
No, they're not.
Yes, they... As far as I'm aware, they are.
They're weird. That's why I'm going.
They're sitting in this really weird in-between of and protecting an armored cruiser.
They are literally referred to as a semi-armored cruiser
Let's have a look.
Yeah, by the Americans.
because
belt
and they are
do they?
classified as a protected cruiser overall.
They have a waterline. They have a belt. They are an armored cruiser. Simple as that. That's the only thing that matters. They have
No,
a
'cause
belt.
You've had protected cruisers with belts.
No, protected cruisers have a protected deck only. They don't have belts. That's the difference. That is the key difference. That is the only difference that matters. It really is that simple. I don't get why everyone gets so confused. If something has a waterline belt, it should be classified as an armored
not
cruiser.
what it's
Okay, so the register of ships of the U.S. Navy lists them as protected cruisers
don't
and later
care what-
semi-armored cruisers.
I don't give a toss what it says. I'm talking
They
about...
were called semi-armored cruisers due to the fact their belts
Oh.
did not
Yeah, sorry, keep going.
extend fully along the length required, with a significant portion of the machinery being covered by a protected deck only.
Yeah, looking at it in particular is explicitly the belt only covers machinery, and that's it. The rest, all the rest is a protected deck only.
That's still...
So it's effectively
problem.
you've got a magazine box.
That's
Or not
still...
a magazine box. You've got a machinery
So it's
box.
so it's a semi-armored cruiser because it only paid half requirement for it to be an armored cruiser.
It has a belt, therefore it's an armored cruiser. I will not
Yes,
be changing...
but it doesn't-
I know. I will not be changing my opinion.
Anyway,
Yeah.
but the fact is, the American East Coast is 2,000
Okay.
miles long,
Okay.
not including the Caribbean.
Yes, this is all facts.
Until the massive amount of light forces the US builds before entering into war are built, you have a small number of ships of limited capability to protect the US East Coast, not including the Caribbean.
Prior to 1917, what exactly are they protecting it against?
Lone submarines, merchant cruisers.
I said prior to 1917, U-boats did not have the range to reach the United States until 1917.
But they were operating on the eastern seaboard.
Yes, but not to an extent where they could menace a lot of the more vital in-coastal shipping that we are referring to as the real lifeblood of US East Coast trade. And of course, let's not forget that if the US is joining the war, I absolutely agree that if we were operating in a vacuum, that yes, you would have an excellent point. But we're not operating in a vacuum. If Roosevelt is leading the country, and it's joining the war, say in 1915, then they're going to start building these destroyers or other light craft. They have the yard space. They have the money.
Right. With
No.
how the US is set up, I don't think you're going to see them building cruisers.
I didn't say cruisers. I said
You did.
No, I didn't.
So,
I didn't.
A lot.
I said
a lot of
destroyers
the issue.
and lighter forces. I didn't say cruisers.
A lot of the issue with the Wick specifically is they had to build out that shipbuilding capacity that allowed them to do that.
I mean,
Before the war, that shipbuilding capacity doesn't exist to military standards.
I mean, to be fair, there's also the option that if they need to bulk out coastal patrol assets quickly, there are other options other than destroyers. A bunch of corvettes and sloops wouldn't be a bad idea. And those you can build basically anywhere. If you're not building a destroyer that has to take the pounding of the waves like a military vessel has to. That's the thing. That's the thing with destroyers, and it's why the US had to take so long to build the capability. Because those Clemsons and Wickses, they were large ships that had to go fast and be strong enough to withstand the stresses they were going to have to deal with. And for that sort of work, you do have to build a military spec vessel. But if you're going to, say, crash out basically the equivalent to the World War I flowers, but American, you can build something like that in any yard on the East Coast you can imagine. And especially if Moe has said the US Coast Guard is becoming a thing that exists in 1915, which it probably still will. I mean, what better way to have an excuse to bulk them out if you're at war than to crash build a vast suite of cutters for them?
Vast majority of shipbuilding in the Americas are for coastal standards.
That's fine. It's the coastal shipping we're bothered about defending.
Yeah, until that shipping's got across the Atlantic.
Well,
I think we're also missing the point. There's absolutely nothing saying. Honestly, Roosevelt is probably most likely going to impose on the Navy for more destroyers before the war even kicks off.
Yeah, that is
true. He's been screaming about that since the Spanish-American War.
Yeah, and also, Chandler, while I get what you're saying, let's not forget, if there's one thing congressmen love, it's contracts going to their districts. A few little discussions here, a few little conversations there, a little bit of money changes hands. Oh dear, the bill's going through.
I feel it's not going to be nearly that simple.
Yeah, because you've got to get past the biggest issue in America at this point. And that's a very isolationist culture. Would the Americans be willing to go to war in 1914? Yeah. It's hard to get the American people to go to war in 1917 after being attacked.
True enough. Roosevelt may be calling for war, doesn't mean the American people want to.
But you think about it, you probably just get a situation where Roosevelt wants to get some favorable trade deals to the Allies and the Entente, and the American people just like, cool.
Well, that is until.
Why do I care about a war in Europe?
That is until Lusitania. Because while Woodrow Wilson and his government tamped down the flames of U.S. yellow papers because it suited them, the Roosevelt government could do the opposite. Fan them. Quite easily. Nothing pisses off the US more than its own people dying. And congressmen who want to keep their seats, if their districts and the people in those districts are baying for German blood, they're going to kind of have to fall in line. I mean,
Not really.
for God's sake, look at what happened when the Maine blew up, and that wasn't even the Spanish's fault.
Yeah. And the Congress had to drag the American people kicking and screaming into the Spanish-American War.
No, they didn't. They did not. I don't know where you've got that idea, but they did not.
So World War One, even after World War One, war against outside the Americas is very unpopular in America. And what nearly torpedoed the Spanish-American War was was reparations, which calmed shit down a lot. Congress declined because Congress wanted the war, but that's a different matter entirely. Do you love imperial ambitions?
Well, the US will probably still get involved in the war earlier than historical.
Yeah, I've got to come back in a bit.
Roosevelt platform include broad range. I'm just reading up Roosevelt's election platform.
My man be like, ah yes, decent policies, not racism.
What he's suggesting is just practically the building block for the New Deal later down the road.
Roosevelt be like, ah yes, let's actually fix America. Woodrow Wilson, no, racism and inequality. Which message will resonate with the voters?
Roosevelt is really hammering on the socioeconomic issues of America more than any foreign statement.
Yeah, but to be fair, he had his finger on the pulse of foreign changes anyway. But yeah, it would be better for the US, absolutely. Right. What's on YouTube? 971. If the Ark Royal had been a 27,000-ton carrier with extra machinery, would it buy her the time she needs to make it back to base? As she was further east than the RN believes she was. No. If Ark Royal, if you have the same damage control officer on Ark Royal as historically, it fundamentally doesn't matter if she's bigger or has better engines. If that damage control officer does not counterflood as he needs to, that girl's going over. If he's the inexperienced damage control officer, the only way you save Ark Royal is if you remove that officer and replace him with someone who is trained in damage control on a carrier. Simple as.
Is he suggesting... I think he might be suggesting what if Ark Royal isn't where she was when she got torpedoed?
No, it's if she's 5,000 tons heavier. Would that, as a result, would this buy time to make it by? I guess in that going off that one, potentially that she might not be in the same area the submarine is.
But even so, like if she gets hit, if you've still got the same officer in charge of damage control, any torpedo hit on a carrier in this period has to be dealt with the correct way. And if you don't, they go over. We see it happen. And that chap is just not going to deal with it properly.
Yeah, you're basically right. On that point. If she gets hit, she's probably suffering the same fate. But would the extra machinery get her more speed to be not where she was?
Hard to say.
I doubt it.
No, she wouldn't do. She would. She'd only have enough machinery to keep her speed with the tonnage. The other tonnage would have gone into more armor, more survivability, or more aircraft, not extra speed. Typical gunnery officer. What would happen if the UK instead of the US had standard missile program in the post-World War II era, and the US instead got UK SAM programs post-World War II? Would the US beg the UK for its standard missiles? No, probably not. The US, the programs would probably remain as historical for all of about 5 seconds until the US looks at what it's doing and goes, "Yeah, let's ramp it up." Because and then you'd get totally C-Dart, honestly gov, we swear, but oh, look at that, it can do the things Terrier can do. And the UK basically comes out of this lucky because they've got better missiles, but the US missiles would slowly start to resemble what we know as Terrier as standard missile, because that's what the US Navy needs and what they know they need. There's a reason why the USN cocked no bullshit and pulled no punches when it came to air defense post World War II. Basically. They knew exactly what they bloody needed. Well, yeah, because they kind of had to be obsessed with it. They never quite recovered from the shock of, oh dear God, that's a fucking missile. The kamikazes were bad enough. The Ohokas were worse.
Yeah, the Pacific War left a very big impression on the US Navy.
So, yeah, there's just... Like, the UK missile program will stay the UK missile program until the first test firing, at which point the US is going to go, nope, back to the drawing board with you, full fucking redesign, go! (1971) If the Knox, Brooks, Garcia, and Bronstein classes were guided missile destroyer escorts rather than frigates, would the OHP be the only guided missile frigates of the USN? If the naming scheme, if the great renaming hasn't taken place, no, they'd be the next generation of guided missile destroyer escorts.
Escorts. Yeah.
Channel Lord asks, is it fair to say the whole Bavarian national identity is based on telling the current German hegemon to sod off? Yeah. That is Bavaria. That kind of do be what Bavaria do. That kind of do be Bavaria's thing. Not gonna lie, that is very Bavarian. 1971. In a Jutland with superfiring Invincibles and Indefatigables with similar hits, Indefatigable is not an Invincible crippled, would 2 battle cruisers lost cause a bad rep on the battle cruiser? I mean, considering that, assuming nothing else has changed, you've still got the Splendid Cats blowing up in spectacular fashion. And considering that and basically, whatever way you slice this, if the Splendid Cats don't die and these ships do, and that's what's happening, then no, you don't have bad reps on the battlecruiser. If these ships die and the Splendid Cats die, that's a massive loss for the RN, but it's still not a bad hit on the battlecruiser concept. If these things die and that's it, then it's still not a bad rep on the battlecruiser. How do I know this? Because we saw historically 3 RN battlecruisers blow up in spectacular fashion at Jutland, and it wasn't a bad rep on the battlecruiser as a concept internationally or in the popular mindset of the people at the time. So, 2 extra battlecruisers, 1 damaged, 1 blown up, is not going to change that.
Pretty much, battlecruiser blew up. Everybody is still building battlecruisers.
Well, I even see like
Where'd
in the
that
market,
rep
also,
come from?
to be blunt. Oh no! The first
Yeah.
and 1.5 generation battle cruisers that are designed to, at best, resist light cruiser guns, so 6-inch.
And maybe have
Oh
a
no!
margin
They were
against...
put into a field of battle they were not meant to, and were blown up. Who could possibly have seen this coming?
Why do you think
Go on.
both Japan and the Royal Navy look at the fully armored battlecruiser concept?
Channel Lord asks, how much of it is Hungary's fault for the bad state of the Habsburg army? The Habsburg state never really recovered from the aftermath of the Brothers' War. They never really recovered from the total separation of Hungary as a independent state within the Habsburg Empire. Because bear in mind, Austria-Hungary was not just that name for a reason. Hungary was basically an independent state, just within the borders of what we consider to be Austria-Hungary, or what used to be the Unitary Austrian Empire. They are the reason that the empire just stagnates in the latter half of the 19th century. Prior to that, the Austrians beat them down every time they get up the Austrians beat them down and push the empire forwards. That happens in 1848. It happens in the 1830s. It happens in the 1850s. Every time something goes wrong, it's usually Hungary's fault, but prior to that, the Austrians are able to batter them into submission and push the empire forwards. Once the empire ceases to be a unitary state, once Hungary gains its full parliament and independence, once the whole dual monarchy becomes a thing, Austria is fucked.
And you can blame Metternich for all of it.
He should not have got the Russians to help in Hungary. He should have just let the Hungarians go. He should have reconquered the rich Italian provinces without any help, and then turn around to deal with whatever mess the Hungarians had gotten themselves into.
No. Because frankly, good luck. Austria-Hungary needed the help. No, the issue was implementing 18 years of absolutionist rule after 1848, which so the Austrians and the Austrian nobility basically take direct control and start ruling it. So it has been basically ruling it as personal fiefdom with little care for the actual Hungarian institutions.
Fair, the Hungarian institutions
This would
weren't worth
last
much
18
anyway.
years.
To be fair, the Hungarian institutions and Hungary in general, and the nobility weren't worth much anyway.
Yeah, but it's more the fact that they also ripped away a lot of the cultural autonomy that had kept Great Hungary together. Implemented Germanization policies in Hungary, Slovakia, and Croatia.
Yeah, that was a massive
which
mistake.
royally pissed off the locals.
Yep.
Because previously, the Austrians had held authority in the region by playing the Slovaks off against the Hungarians, off against the Croatians, off against the Romanians in Transylvania.
Yep.
Because of Metternich, in 1886, those groups came together and forced the Austrian compromise.
Yep.
Which basically made which restored full, and I'm talking everything aside from foreign policy, autonomy to Great Hungary.
Yeah, there is a reason why most maps of the period have Hungary as a separate border within Austria.
Yeah.
Because that's true. That is actually accurate.
Yeah. And it's why I fucking hate realists who cite Metternich, because Metternich fucking failed in the end.
Yes, he did.
But
He wanted to.
Basically turned fucking Hungary into a pressure cooker. And it comes up in pretty much every war except the Balkan Wars, where the Austrians want to do something, the Hungarians say, no, fuck you. We remember what our ruling classes, our nobility, our bourgeoisie remembered your absolutionist tear through our country not 20, 30 years ago. So you say left, we say right.
Yep.
It's bad for the country. Well, if we lose a war, maybe we'll become independent again. Because let it not be said that Hungary was the population powerhouse in Austria-Hungary.
Yep. Yes, it was.
Industrially, the Czechs, well, it's not the Czechs at this point, it's still the Kingdom of Bohemia under the Habsburgs. Was, especially Prague itself, was the industrial centre.
Skoda works.
Yeah, and it's why when Bismarck puts forth his and tries in the after the Brothers' War, alongside taking Silesia, tries to take the Czechs. Both the Russians and the French get very angsty at him.
Because that guts Austria completely, which cannot be
That
allowed.
gives Germany an industrialized area that's got similar outputs to the Rhineland.
Yes, it is.
And you get the issue of, so the money making parts is the Czechs.
Yeah,
The Czech don't like the Austrians.
no.
Most of the population, though, is in Greater Hungary, who are the Twin Monarchy and the absolutist reign of Metternich who really don't like the Austrian.
Yeah.
Uh,
Me and Fox are basically saying
Yeah,
nobody likes the Austrians.
And then, to put all of this on top of it, the Austrians were relying on the Hungarians and the Czechs to keep down the Poles in Galicia, Volhynia. Because remember, Krakow keeps revolting.
Yeah.
So-
Okay, so next question, because this is really quick. 1971. If the 1910 towns were mid 5k to mid 6k ton to high 5k to high 6k ton with a speed of 25.5 to 26 knots, does that only delay the inevitable than post World War One? Knight, you've literally just described the historical Chatham and Birmingham subclasses of the towns. That's literally what they are. And we saw what happens to them. So, no, it doesn't.
Why do I need to keep them around? There's like
They're
30
also,
C classes.
and they're also too slow. 25 knots is not fast enough for a cruiser in the post-World War One period.
The C's, the D's, and the E's would like to say hello.
Yeah,
being
and
the Royal
also-
Navy cruiser for.
And also, the C's are the absolute bare minimum for speed. As soon as ships like Renown and Repulse come in, and Hood clocking along at 30 knots, your 27 to 29 knot cruiser suddenly looks very, very inadequate.
I think putting Hood there's unfair.
I was more using her as a speed marker than anything
No,
else.
because you undersold her speed.
Well, no,
Yeah.
it's
Because a
not.
C and a D looks inadequate when you've got Hood running around.
That's what I said. That's literally what I said.
No, as in your cruiser running around at 32 knots looks inadequate.
I know. It doesn't really. Yeah, I know. That's what I.
That's not what you said, but okay.
No, that's what I said. I said when you've got Hood, Renan, and Repulse running around, a cruiser running around at 27 to 29 knots looks very inadequate indeed. That's what I said.
But
That's
but Hood running around
yeah.
make even stuff like C's, D's, and E's.
That's
look
what I just
inadequate.
fucking said.
No, it isn't.
That's okay.
Because they do more than that.
That's not. Do you understand the basics of the English fucking language?
Yes.
Right,
say very
okay,
much-
just to simplify it all,
As Slayer
when
put,
talking about cruiser speeds, just don't bring up the Admiral class. Because until the 1930s, they're an out-of-context problem that nobody's building to counter.
Look,
So Renown and Repulse are the better analogy. Capiche?
the cruisers are running around at 27 to 29 knots. That's inadequate. Everyone knows the speeds the battle cruisers are doing. Why the fuck would I mention the speed of the battle cruisers? I'm talking about the cruisers here and the fact their speed is inadequate. Why the fuck do I need to mention the battle cruiser speeds? What the fuck is wrong with you people?
because there's a vast bloody difference.
Of course there is, and everyone knows it.
And if you want to go off that, the E's, which you brought up, and managed to hit 33 bloody
That's
knots.
fine. I didn't mention
So
the
saying
E's.
a 27 knot. Why did 27s even come into this? 27, 29. Trying to bring up the C's, D's, and E's versus an Admiral is a terrible idea because they were designed for bloody 34 to 35.
I know that. Everyone knows that. The point I'm making is that the game had changed. You're really hyper-focusing
The
in on
game
this.
had changed between Renown and Repulse and Hood.
I know that. I don't get your point. This seems
Your point was you
stupid in the
conflated two
extreme.
entirely different situations.
No, I didn't. It's so easy to understand. How is this hard?
Shut. But back to the original question, because you're both fucking wrong. And I've got no interest in hearing monkeys fighting. Right? The towns, to answer Knight's questions, making them faster doesn't matter. Because they're war-worn cruisers who are still too slow for the post-war period. Because battle line speeds have increased, yes. 25 knots. Well, if it would be about what the QBs are looking at doing. Just keeping the battle cruiser out of this, because apparently it's a sore subject. That's too slow for a modern cruiser by the end of World War I. Can we agree?
No, that's fine. My issue isn't well, Dragon and me are saying the same thing. My issue is that he doesn't think I'm saying the same thing. I'm trying to understand why he can't understand the grammar I'm using. It's like it makes
As
perfect
Slayer
sense.
literally put it, there is a 27 to 29 does not equal 32.
Well, yeah, it doesn't. But
that's what he's saying.
Yeah,
He's saying the C's and the D's were inadequate to escort renowned repulsed Hood.
But they're not meant to escort renowned repulse and Hood.
It's not that I'm not directly referring.
They're
to
not
the
even meant to be
season.
used in the same theater.
Hence, they're inadequate.
They're not though, because that's not what their role.
That's not the point I'm making.
Well, that part doesn't matter. We're talking about a post-war world. Those are the ships you're escorting.
No. Right.
And we're also talking about
But
cruisers
y'all got it
generally.
fucking wrong.
And we're also talking about cruisers generally. I use the CMDs as an example, but was more referring to 27 to 29 knot cruisers generally as a rule post-war are inadequate.
On my point, but right. The Seas were seen as becoming quickly obsolete in the post-war world with increasing ship speeds.
That's why
A
you can
slightly faster version of the town won't matter in this case.
Yeah.
Because the towns are slower than the seas.
Yeah.
Because the threat a modern cruiser post-war faces requires a speed that the E's are barely reaching.
Yeah. See, now I understand.
Next question.
No, I need to say something. See, now I understand. No. I will mute you if you do not let me. I will mute you if you do not let me finish my point. Because this is important. See, now
a bad cruise has been wrong.
Everything that I understand now, what Dragon was driving at. See, the thing I couldn't understand was where he was coming from. Now I get it. He was basically. See, I understand. I get it now. I get where you're coming from, because I may have brought up the C's and the D's, and then pivoted into me tangent about cruisers. So he thought I was referring specifically to them, and then I brought up the battle cruisers, and then. I get it. I'm with you. I'm on the same page. I know what he's driving at. I get why he said what he said.
About
Dragon, drop it. Drop it.
And to be blunt,
let him say his thing, and then we move on, because you've been wrong here as well. So drop it.
No, he deserves a chance to bury the hatchet.
No,
I've buried my end.
Okay, if that's how we're going, fine.
No,
It's just next question. Next question, Flea.
You didn't have to cut him off like that. I got a chance to bury my end. He should have got a chance to bury his.
Yeah, and if you notice that, I wanted you to just move on.
Well,
because you were both going wrong.
You really went wrong there, Fox. I'm just going to put that out there. Don't overrule me again. This isn't your show. This is my show. I understand what you're trying to do. I understand what you're trying to do, but if I'm saying we're going to bury things and do it properly, that's what we're going to do. This isn't your show, this is mine.
Yeah, and I was trying to stop a major fucking argument.
We literally were in the process of doing exactly that. That's literally what we were...
You were getting him worked up again.
No, I literally told him I understood where he was coming from.
Yeah,
and
you were getting him worked up again.
And I was going to give him a chance to say his piece. That was as he deserved a right to do so. That's his right. That's what he has a right to do that. Worked up or not, that's the point of the show.
Yeah, well, next question. Next question.
I'm doing it. Give me a second. Copy and pasting takes time, and I gotta find it. Here we go. There we go. Typical officer. What would happen if the post-revolution Iranian armed forces fell apart under the shock of the more competent Iraqi armed forces in the Iran-Iraq war? How would the war go, and how would the post-war look like? If the Iranian forces just fall apart, and Iraq achieves its war goals, the Iranian oil fields in the south fall into Iraqi hands. The border stabilizes. Iran is probably forced, if Iran recovers and doesn't accept a fait accompli, it'll basically have to, because the Iran-Iraq war will go the same way it did historically, but the border will be with Iraq holding the gains it wants to make. And at that point, you don't get the Kuwait war, because, well, the whole thing with the invasion of Kuwait was a recovery of prestige and a recovery of financial wealth from the Iran-Iraq war, which no longer needs to happen because Iraq has won both increased monetary value and increased prestige by winning the fucking war.
I mean, if Iran folds quickly, you also don't get the tanker war.
No.
Which means the oil crisis.
The oil crisis, the tanker war didn't cause. Oh yeah, it was an oil shock. Yeah, it's the oil shock.
I thought. I mean, it's the oil shock bringing America, shifting American things that.
No, Slayer's question wasn't skipped. There's no yellow dots there. I've not skipped a yellow dot.
Did you post the question?
I'm not seeing one. There's no.
Oh, you did. You put a green dot and you didn't answer it.
Ah, well, we'll get to it in a second. It's all right. We'll get to it in a second. It's fine. Don't worry about it. I wouldn't. Don't go me, Slayer. We'll get to it in a second. In fact, we'll get to it once we've done the next YouTube question. Knight 6831. If the RN got 18 Clemson, 13 Wicks, 3 Cadwell class, and the Royal Canadian Navy got 3 Clemson, 21 Wicks class destroyers in World War One, how does that affect Royal Navy destroyer design in the 1920s? It doesn't, in any way, at all. Literally. Yeah.
I mean, Would the Royal Navy be interested in a flush decker?
Not really. It doesn't really fit the whole. They've already got their own development line going. They've got destroyers for what the Royal Navy needs. The Clemsons, Wicks, and Cadwells are very much American destroyers for American needs. They don't really fit with what they are. What the RN's going for. What the RN's going for. They would be good for war emergency work, but they would likely be sold off, / reserved, / seen as useful ships to be kept going. But they wouldn't be... They wouldn't really take any cues from them more than they did from the Wicks and Clemsons in US service. Already. Dragon, what do you think? If the RN gets a bunch of Clemsons and flush deckers, and the Rocanians get a bunch of Clemsons and flush deckers, do you think that's going to meaningfully affect RN destroyer design?
When?
World War One.
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
Realistically speaking, from discussions I've had with others, Drac, Clark, and other people who know it, what we know as the A class is already on its way by 1915-16, if not earlier.
They don't even fit with RN doctrine, do they? And design lineage for destroyers.
Side-mounted torpedoes are right out. It's too much weight and doesn't fit. The North Sea will have a heyday with them. But also, overall, the gunpowder just isn't there, which I know might sound weird for a destroyer, being gunpowder not being there. But if I remember correctly, Clemson has 4 guns, in particular 1 fore, 1 aft, and 1 wing per side of the superstructure.
Outside.
Yes, there is that stupid upgrade, which made those twins.
That was very far down
Bad
the road.
idea. Yeah, and it's far away and bad idea. Top-heavy destroyers do not like more top weight.
Clemson's advantage is torpedo weight coming down from having side-mounted torpedoes, but you're paying for it with basically minimal firepower from the guns.
Yeah.
As said, though, also, it doesn't really fit Royal Navy doctrine to have side-mounted torpedoes.
No.
Like,
They
will they be
stopped doing
used?
side-mounted stuff for a good while.
Will they be used in World War One and post-war? Yeah, hulls are hulls, and the RN and the RCN can find uses for them. But are they going to be seen as absolutely brilliant assets that they're going to love? No.
Pizza.
What? Are you
So-
alright?
That's
she's-
Debbie.
I mean, to be fair, it's just destroyer designs. It's just a question of, is there anything from the flush deckers that the RNs may be interested in looking in? That's why I originally asked, would they be interested in going into a flush deck design? Because they
Probably
never
not.
did.
They prefer the step-up design we see. Or
Yeah.
then that we then get to... Technically... Just double-check.
I guess another big thing
Yeah,
would be-
no, in general, the Royal Navy very quickly enjoyed the step-up. As we see with the A and B. I was just double-checking to see...
Yeah.
Was there any of them that were sort of a flush deck at a higher level? But no.
Oh no, I checked the entire all the way down to World War II. They're all step ups.
As I recall, it's partly because you need that step up for North Sea and what's it called, the oceans around it, because North Sea is not exactly friendly.
I think the big thing with the Clemson, the other thing with Clemson is that it does have a longer operating range than the VNWs.
Yes,
Is that
does.
something the Royal Navy would be interested in?
You're already
Well, to be
looking at
fair, that-
improvements to this,
Yeah. And
because
to be fair, that's just mostly making a bigger ship.
the VNWs have some of the later ones have 3,500 nautical miles range, which the Royal
Yeah, I'm
Navy
just looking at the
deems
ANWs.
acceptable. But the AMWs then went, yes, more. We have a bigger ship. Let's use the more space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're useful ships, but yeah, I think we could all generally agree there isn't really anything on the Clemson design that would be
Yeah.
that the Royal Navy would be too interested in.
So the next question is from Slayer,
Oh.
which should have been the one before. How much would the Atlantic and
Yes.
Pacific Wars have went differently if both the G7A and Mark 14 torpedoes actually worked? I think Drac has answered this before, but very, very quickly, and I do mean quickly because because to go beyond this is kind of the question floors you with the scale of it. You're talking double-digit capital ships for both the Allies and the Axis on the bottom of the ocean within the first year of both conflicts. The Japanese would have lost significant portions of their invasion fleets of the Philippines and the Dutch East Indies and Malaya, along with numerous big-ticket capital ships and carriers. Whereas in the Atlantic, the RM would have lost, I think, 3 to 4 battleships and 2 carriers, on top of what they already lost historically, including either Nelson or Rodney. And beyond that point, you've suddenly got a very, very different war. I'm sure everyone could agree.
Yeah.
That's not counting cruisers and destroyers and other things that got hit with torpedoes and didn't explode. Dragon? Foxo? Please weigh in. I value your opinions.
Sorry, I'm playing with a dog. Like,
Shit, he's going full.
Oh.
He's going full.
I've got a
Dr.
border
Clark.
collie, and I've got a border collie on my lap.
He's going full Dr. Clark on us.
Sorry, I've just got a large Domino's pizza.
Oh god, she's gone full Dominoes on us.
If the G7A and Mark 14 actually work, Mark 14's the more impressive one theoretically.
So many
G7A
lost
could
Congos.
indeed be good, but also,
So many sunk Congos.
well, not just Congos. A number of carriers and what's called a couple of the other battleships would be sunk.
Yeah, and
from
that's
torpedo strike records.
and that's within like the first few months, isn't it, of the Pacific War?
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy.
Was it? Which one? It was one of the more impressive battleships. I'm pretty sure also would have been done. Let alone one of them modern carriers.
Yeah.
Is the G7A the one I'm thinking of? No, I don't think it is exactly. Because I was trying to remember, is that the acoustic torpedo? Because that one actually would be interesting if that worked, but
I don't think that's the acoustic torpedo.
that's what I'm just double checking. I don't think it is.
An acoustic version.
I know, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like, I do recall later there were some, but I don't think it was the acoustic torpedo necessarily.
No, it's not. G7A is the basic one.
Yeah, that's. And G7E is the electric one.
Yeah.
There's not really much to say about from the torpedoes work. More ships probably get sunk. What's it called?
The post-war aircraft carriers don't get built
Yeah.
because you've given us the submarine such insane levels of lethality. Pretty much anyone who's trying to get ships is going to have to go, okay, well, if we want to control the sea, we just need a submarine with torpedoes.
I would say that
I don't think they disappear.
No, I think no, I know. I think you're gonna. Well, I think that will be the thinking at first, and then you'll see the dramatic shift. Well, first of all, probably even faster. You'll see the dramatic shift in submarine losses in the Atlantic that will take place as the Allies get good, and then suddenly the Allies will go, oh, the solution isn't submarines, it's a lot of fucking ASW to restore the status quo. And then they're going to go, oh, carriers are useful for this. So yeah, there will be a brief.
Nelson sunk.
Yeah, there will be a brief. Oh shit, the sub is OP for about a year or two, and then everyone will then that will revert as ASW techniques improve radically. You get Western Approaches Command doing what Western Approaches Command does best. Good old women's only team
Okay.
going hog wild on the U-boats.
No. Okay, so just a minute. So you would have lost most of the illustrious class of submarines. Glorious, Furious, Ark Royal, and a significant portion of the Royal Navy's battle fleet of submarines.
Yeah, because looking at it, it's like 1939 Nelson would be sunk.
Yeah. And where Rodney gets hit by a dud, it wouldn't be immediately fatal to her, but it would stop her. And it's going to be a case of maybe you see the mass adoption of the incredibly cheap escort carrier. But that's going to be the only carrier. They're going to be the only carriers around. Especially once the Americans start doing stuff like putting down Akagi and the other ones when they get hit. Because Akagi gets hit by a dud. And then you're just going to have... Yeah, and you're going to get a case of... The fleet carriers are sitting duck. The battleships are sitting duck. The only surface vessel that's really useful is the mass deployable escort carrier.
I am gonna.
What's it called? Shokaku would be sunk.
Yeah.
I'm gonna push back hard on that.
But can I finish quickly?
Yeah.
Oh God.
So while the surface fleets are rebuilding, then the guided torpedo is going to come in, and that lethality is going to shoot through the fucking roof again.
For
And
a
at that
brief
point,
period
I
until-
don't see until pretty far into the Cold War with advances in AFW, sort of AFW helicopters, a massive expansion of AFW infrastructure that comes in the 70s and 80s. I don't see the surface vessel being your actual fighting force.
I am gonna push back on all of those points quickly if I'm allowed to.
Yeah,
Okay.
I will just quickly mention something I had to bolster Fox's point. Just quickly looking at it, the Japanese would lose Hio, Junyo, Taiyo, and Shokaku in 2 days.
Hmm.
They would lose 4 carriers in a 2-day period if the torpedoes worked. I do agree fully that there definitely is pushback here against what Fox is saying, but
I need to explain the
So go on.
why. So, if we were in a vacuum, I would agree. But I think we need to bear in mind a few key things. First of all, we aren't accounting for the fact that ASW gets good enough to reduce the scale of these sinkings and get on top of things like this by about 1944-45. Bear in mind, the torpedoes were working by that point, and you don't see sinkings like this by that point. You've also got to bear in mind that torpedo defense systems will probably dramatically increase as well. Or, well, they will until the under-keel detonation becomes reliable. At that point, then they'll be dropped in favor of maneuverability and being detecting and sinking the sub first. You'll probably see a lot more work on air-dropped torpedoes and much better depth charges and things like Hedgehog. You'll probably see the Fido torpedo will be the first step a lot earlier, and you'll probably see iterated on before the war even ends. Yes, you will see escort carriers proliferate in large numbers, but you will see the navies. Maybe the battleship dies earlier. I can absolutely see that because, well, it probably add another reason for the death of the battleship here. But the carrier? No, I don't think so. Because for one thing, will you let me finish?
Yep.
Okay, for one thing, to operate the sort of ASW task force in contest. So let's say in your scenario you have a bunch of escort carriers running around, and they're seen as the primary way you hunt subs and do things on the surface, and you have escorts as well, and that's your surface fleet, and
Okay.
your submarines are your war prosecution assets. It's only going to take one person going, okay, well, what if I build a slightly bigger carrier and put some aircraft on it that don't just hunt subs and some AEW assets? Well, then I can hunt the other guys' escort carriers and clear the way for my subs. And that's going to happen during the Second World War as well. People are going to realize that. And at that point, people will go, well, okay, then we've already got large carriers. Let's keep them in addition to our normal things. And then you will get the timeline will resume the carrier, cruiser, destroyer setup that we see during the Cold War, with perhaps a bump during the Second World War and its immediate aftermath, say 3 to 5 years afterwards. But the timeline will resume with relatively little fanfare. Because I understand where she's coming from, but unfortunately,
just like make a counterpoint there, though.
but unfortunately, it doesn't really survive the contact with the realities of naval warfare during the period.
It does. Because you're going to run into the issue of ASW, even if you bring stuff forward, gets good by reliably hunting and prosecuting submarines by body 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we're going historical dud hits, the Royal Navy carrier force is underwater. The Royal Navy battle fleet's underwater. The Royal Navy's portion of the Royal Navy's cruiser force is underwater. A portion of the US Navy is underwater. Pretty much every carrier of Japan's underwater.
Oh, wait, hold on. Why is a better part of the US Navy underwater?
I remember ready. Torpedo general, it's just those two.
It's just those two torpedoes, yeah.
Yeah. Even then, the Americans are going to have carriers. And they're going to look at everyone else and go, God, we got fucking lucky. Because the Royal Navy, as a force that's fielding carriers, ceases to exist. And having the entirety of the carrier force wiped out for the fleet carriers, and having the smaller carriers and possibly the light fleets that are under construction be the ones that survive and can drive the submarine nightmare, makes it kind of hard to justify the fleet carrier, because we tried that, they all got fucking sunk immediately. And it wasn't just us that got sunk.
I am going to push back on that again, because you've not addressed the other issue in the room, which is, A, escort carriers can't really do the missions that fleet carriers can do, and still need to do, which is land strike, realistic anti-surface strike, and fleet air defense. And those missions are going to reassert themselves, because, I'm sorry, all it takes is one of the powers going, well, what if we use our carriers to sweep the seas of the enemy escort carriers to clear the way for our submarines? And then the other side's going to go, okay, well, we need our carriers to fight their carriers, and suddenly, bada bing, bada boom, you're back to the
Would you like my counter
carrier.
to that, Fleet? You're partially right, but you're not quite right, in my opinion. There is a perfect ship for this. The Royal Navy looked at them. The Royal Navy built them.
The light
Built the
fleet
light
carrier.
fleet carriers.
Well, that's fine. That doesn't really change the fact that that still is the
That's
return of
what
the
you
fleet.
probably would potentially see. What also interesting is you probably see the Mark 20 torpedo come out sooner for the British. For those not familiar, Mark 20 is the bidder torpedo, explicitly does not looked at in 1943 as an anti-submarine warfare torpedo that could also take out enemy ships as needed.
The bitter.
They potentially looked at it as a parachute-dropped torpedo
Yep.
in 1943.
The bitter is a fucking massive weapon.
Yes, it's an anti-submarine torpedo fleet.
I just
But a
That can be
Thunderlord can
used-
carry one.
That can be used against other enemy ships if needed.
And
Now,
I just like to
admittedly, now, it
push.
took the Royal Navy until 55 to actually get them into service, but hey.
yeah.
Yeah, and I'd also like to combat Fleet's point about air power. I agree. They're going to look at that and go air power and go, okay, we'll just use our own long range air power
That's not.
because the Lightnings are in service.
No.
Maritime
No.
patrol aircraft operating above islands are in service by 43.
In
And
the
you get
Pacific,
these-
that's not enough range.
And also, I'm just going to point
Yeah,
out that
and you've got stuff like the Catalina.
is-
You can't torpedo a Catalina.
Oh, this is the same stupid land-based aviation argument that I've had to shoot down again and again and again and again.
Yeah,
The
but in a
whole point
universe
of-
where the submarine is hyper lethal,
It
you
fundamentally
can't torpedo
doesn't.
an island.
It fundamentally doesn't matter how lethal.
Yeah,
the
but when you have to
submarine- will
approach
well,
the island, you have to have your own air force.
Yeah, but anyway, the point I'm making is
You have
it
to have
doesn't-
your own fleet carrier to project protective air power.
And it also doesn't matter whether the submarine is lethal or not, because the thing about carriers that makes them useful, it doesn't matter what missions they can perform. The important thing is that you put that air power with the fleet and under the admiral's control. Air power at sea, when it's supplied from land at the Air Force or Army's discretion, is fundamentally, quite frankly, given how it was used and how it worked during World War II, useless to a navy. And it was continually proved so. Every attempt of the IJA and IJN to coordinate failed
Yeah.
spectacularly. The Regia Aeronautica, working with the Regia Marina, failed spectacularly. The RAF, doing strikes on behalf of the RN at sea, failed spectacularly. The air
Yes.
power at sea only works as a naval thing if you have carriers with the fleet to provide strikes and defense at the Admiral's discretion.
Counterpoint: if all your carriers are at the bottom of the fucking ocean because 1939 and 1941 happened,
Build
you
more.
have one choice: get good with land-based air power.
That's
Because
not,
your carry, because any sort of
No.
fleet carrier is still 2 to 3 years away.
That's not.
Right. You've got some valid points, but overall, no, it's not going to be quite with that. Also, partly this is going to also end up occurring because the British, the Japanese, and the Italians don't have these hyper torpedoes that actually just function every time. So the nation will still go, well, what's made those torpedoes work? How are they just magic? How do they manage to get a torpedo
Who's
that
a good boy?
does not
Who's a good boy?
fail?
You want some of my pizza, don't you? You want some of my pizza?
Oh,
don't
And
you?
she's
Of
gone.
course he does.
And she's gone.
But submarines will be a case of, oh god, what just happened? Because again, as Foxo did rightly say, most of the Royal Navy and the Japanese fleet just went to the bottom. Yes, but it still specifies like on the American and the German torpedoes.
Didn't specify anything else. So, like I say, this is why I say, while there will be some bumps and there will be a bit of a shake-up to the war on the timeline, the normal scale of naval development will probably reassert itself, especially.
Oh
post-
no, like, oh no, this could do a lot more than you could see. The Britain have to drop out the war.
And I think you see, if you do see carriers, you see a lot smaller carriers. Because navies, right, will be running with the assumption that that their carriers after the events of 39, 40, and 41 are going to suffer massive attrition rates for non-operations. So you're not going to get these large Essex and Midway and Audacious-sized carriers.
That depends. There's nothing stopping the US being like, seeing what Britain suffered and being like, okay, we need to triple or quadruple the amount of escorts for a carrier. Maybe that will stop the submarines.
There's nothing
The fact that-
stopping the RN diverting resources to destroy escorts and frigates that can keep up with the carriers.
And fundamentally, protecting a single large carrier is infinitesimally easier than trying to protect a squadron of light carriers.
Actually, the light carriers is easy. So, right, a few things. First of all, Royal Navy can't really spin up what's called fast escorts because their fast escorts already exist. They're the destroyers. So you're just going to actually have to now mass produce destroyers.
And
You're not going to be using you're not going to be using corvettes or sloops to escort carriers. These will have to be full-on ships.
Yeah, and just to add to Dragon's point, most of the modern fast destroyers have also been decimated.
Yes.
Because quite a few of the tribals and other modern Royal Navy destroyers were hit by torpedoes that would turn out to be duds. So you've lost most of your fast destroyer force
or the guidance systems fail on the torpedoes.
Yes.
Like, there's a lot which were caused by misses that wouldn't have missed if it wasn't for the issues. Unironically, this is why I say the Royal Navy might have to leave the war because we have lost almost every major surface unit. Which that affects things quite significantly.
Yeah.
You've also already got the capital ship pause in play, which has now got problems. But then you now need to do a different thing, because instead of going to the escorts, those escorts are now useful for convoys, useless for escorting anything faster. Because fleet are probably the best navy at this period for anti-submarine warfare.
Yeah, but so why wouldn't they resurrect one of their
more their fleet's just been wiped out.
Yes, but why wouldn't they resurrect one of their more successful anti-submarine concepts with more modern technology in the form of the R-Class if the submarine is so superior?
Which R-Class are we referring to here?
The R-Class.
You say the R-Class and that's the battleship.
No, I'm talking about the other R-Class.
Yes, but when you say R-Class primarily refers to the battleship. That's what I'm saying. Which R-Class are you referring to?
The Rivers?
No, the R-Class submarines, the dedicated hunter-killers of World War One.
They don't work in this. They don't work in a World War II period.
Why not? Well,
because and this has changed. Like, how many ships fleet in World War II managed to sink an enemy submarine with a torpedo?
Not many, but bear in mind,
one.
One.
No, but I will point out the concept is basically sound if you think about it. Given the if you want to stalk enemy submarines and don't want to lose ships yourself, then what better way to do that with hydrophones and ASDIC, or more accurately hydrophones, with a high submerged speed to catch the target or position yourself around the target when submerged, and then try and catch it on the surface.
The problem is then now you basically got a gunfight. Apart from the fact that Bone Wheel R-Class literally is the English term for the Revengers.
He is right there. But you treat hunting the submarine like hunting a surface ship. You basically deploy your subs to... Your subs basically hunt U-boats as they're transiting. It's a decent concept, and one that would work quite well in World War II, especially if you've got things like radar and better hydrophones.
Just to clarify, you're building submarines to do the same job as maritime patrol aircraft, only more inferior.
No, I'm building submarines to do the same job to do a different job. The maritime patrol aircraft should really be out there finding the bastards when they're out at sea. The whole point of this is to add another layer to the...
Yeah, and they did that by tracking them out when they were transiting. Hence why the Bay of Biscay had a Sunderland infestation.
Yeah, but there's no point.
So you probably actually think about it. You're probably going to just not have a bomber war, because every large twin to quad engined airframe is going to be, oh fuck, we need this for maritime patrol. And if that proves to be the effective counter to submarines, that massively changes things very quickly. Ah, God. Men like Billy Mitchell and fucking... what's his name from the RAF might actually get their will.
Anyway, next question. 1981, if the 4 Congos and the 2 Atagos and 2 Maya-class guided missile destroyers were purely domestic designs instead of a Japanese version of the Burke, what might change about them? Literally nothing, because you've literally just described the Congos and the Mayas. They are fully, purely domestic destroyers. Their hulls are domestically designed. Their weapon systems and fits are domestically designed. They're Aegis ships, but there's a reason why they look like Burks. The Japanese needed a ship of a similar size to do a similar job carrying the Aegis missile system. And it turns out when you need to carry the emitters for that system, your superstructure on that size of hull, your superstructure kind of has to look a certain way.
But there's a simple thing I propose, Dr. Clark, and that is the naval equivalent of the crab is the Arleigh. Given sufficient time and escalation of roles, any surface combatant will evolve into an Arleigh.
Because if you want an Aegis style system for 360 coverage, you need that superstructure forward. You want a 5-inch gun, you've got to put it forwards. You want VLS arranged the way they have it to carry the number of cells, it's got to be arranged the way that it is on ships like that with hulls like that.
Yeah, you have to put the hangar and the heli deck at the aft. The Arleigh is the crab of destroyers. It's why the US Navy has such a hard time getting away from it. No, you're not having my last slice of pizza. Don't mouth at me, mister. Yeah.
Yeah, the Burks,
Demolting.
Yeah,
Ew.
the Japanese ships are not licensed built.
Don't mean
The Japanese ships are not licensed built Burks. They don't take anything from the Burks apart from certain weapon systems and sensor fits. They are fully keel up Japanese domestic designs.
Yeah, it's like the Royal Navy destroyers in the older iterations. You squint a bit, they kind of look like Burks.
Mm-hmm.
When they're considering they just fit for them.
And I mean, for God's sake, I mean, I know it's weird, but look at Type 45. Look at Type 40. Heck, look at any modern destroyer. Gun forward.
Or the German
missiles
large
behind.
frigate.
Yeah, it's just they're all like we're headed towards a new era of what I call the age of sailisms, where ships, no matter their size, look a certain way. Every Age of Sail ship looked a certain way, regardless of its size. Forecastle, gun deck, aft castle, big window section aft. What do we have now? Gun, forward VLS cells, superstructure, engines, flight deck aft.
Well, even the Russians are in this boat. All their new proposal projects models are like, it looks like a bird.
And also,
Everything.
the Arleigh Burks aren't crap. Despite how we meme and we make jokes about them, they are still the most capable destroyers on the fucking planet. The Block 3s and soon coming Block 4s are going to have problems, but they're still the most capable destroyers on the fucking planet.
They're one of, if you want to be more
Pedantic. If you want to take their worst and their opponent's best, then they're one of the best.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much.
Yep. Okay.
But I think the Arleigh Burks are the main ones who have been shot at and haven't come up wanting.
No,
Unlike their Russian, British, Indian.
Yeah. Like, to be fair, 45 given with its rebuilds has given a good account of itself in the high threat environment that was the Red Sea. So the 45s have broken the curse of British destroyers being shot at and hit. So good job, 45s. Shout out to Sea Dons on HMS Diamond who got shot at and didn't die.
Yep.
So good job, 45s.
But Diamond and Dragon survived. The Arleigh Burks
Thrived.
thrived. And it's why the Arleigh Burke as a design is such a problem for the US Navy.
Because it's good. It's really good.
How do you move on from the Burke? That is a very interesting question indeed.
It is. It really is. And it's
Most
why the UN...
most countries still hasn't figured that one out yet.
Most countries
Since
are
you're
still
still
working their
building
way.
Burke.
Most countries, apart from Japan and South Korea, are still working their way towards the Burke's capabilities.
Even China's out there for Block 2.
Yes.
Yeah, their Type 55s are basically there.
But Europe hasn't caught up yet. We haven't caught up yet.
Well, okay, but that's more
would
because
say
Europe
that.
is the home of the frigate. The destroyers an endangered species in Europe.
Yeah. Although, to be fair, have you seen the new German frigates? 92 VLS. They're closing in on Flight 1 Burke.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's
Anyway.
a reason why it's
Yeah.
not really called a frigate by most
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. Anyway. Typical gunnery officer asked, and this will be the last question.
Oh, no. It's just what Gunnar Officer said. The UK already caught up. The Type 45 is more capable than the Burks. buddy.
When you say the Burks, do you mean USS Alley Burke? Or do you mean the entire class?
I'm sorry.
I didn't say
Look.
Burks are a crab. I said the Burks are a crab.
Crab. You know how the meme? Everything evolves into crab. Everything evolves into crab. Everything evolves into Burke. Look, I love the 45s, and they're getting a lot more capable when they've got their ESSM tubes forward, and they've devoted all of their main cells to Aster 30. We will actually have air defense destroyers that are capable of defending UK carriers in decent threat environments, because they'll have good point defense and they'll have good long range air and ballistic missile defense. Because bear in mind, we're in an era now where 80 kilometers is point defense, given some of the missiles that are being fired at ships now. That's where we are. That's where we are now. And like anything below 40 kilometers is oh shit range. So we're going to have one last question, and then I'm going to be moving into the post-Ramblings game night, which this week is Fleet Suffering in Victoria 3. The new DLC is out. I'm going to go and save the Ottoman Empire again. And I'm not going to die trying. Or I could do Hoi 4, random country placement, since it worked so well the last time. And to be fair, I haven't done a random country placement game in... That has been a hot minute, actually. When was the last one of those I did?
Anyway, let's get the questions
last
on
question. Typical gunnery officer asks, what would happen if post-World War I and World War II Japanese government wasn't as pro-militarist or authoritarian like IRL, and they had much more democratic system in the late 1910s or early 1920s? How would their imperialist ambition look like if they had this kind of government? How would World War II Japan look? Well, basically, the first thing you need to realise is that the Japanese government was always pro-military. Even in its democratic eras, it was always pro-military and pro-imperialist, and there was always an authoritarian streak. Even at the height of Japan's pre-war, pre-militarism, democratic institutions, you gotta understand, when people say the Japanese democratic period, they're talking about in relative terms. Assuming that the period of less of relatively controlled political violence and elections that aren't completely rigged continues and doesn't spiral into totalitarianism, what you're going to see is a Japan that basically does what it was going to do historically, which is nibble away at China piece by piece, setting up puppet governments here, seizing a treaty port there, carving off a sphere here. That was Japan's long-term ambition, to turn China into a collection of governments loyal to Japan or divided enough they couldn't threaten Japan ever again. And the plan for the
China
threaten.
And the plan was to do it in a way that was slow, gradual, and didn't drain Japan's coffers. Unfortunately, that went out the window when the military got involved.
It's kind of interesting. It's like asking the aristocratic warrior class that runs the country to not go do war is,
Yeah. Yeah, it didn't really go well. As long as the civilian government feeds them enough warfare, enough beating up on the Chinese to keep them satiated, things should be able to be kept to a relatively low boil.
And, it is infinitely not helpful that Japan's experience to the modern world is that country across the ocean sailing a fleet and telling them to open up their ports, or else.
Open the country. Stop having it be closed. Yeah.
The cultural impact of the
Hello,
Black
history of
Fleet
the
to
entire world, I
Japan is
guess.
ridiculous.
Yes.
Often
basically-
understated by everybody else.
If there is to be some tension, it'll likely be when Japan keeps nomming away, and the other great powers in China start getting a bit iffy. Assuming that Japan is still doing this, you'll probably have a Japan that has squared off a good third of China under various puppet regimes by the outbreak of the Second World War. Whether or not this is a Japan that is aligned to any of the great powers involved in the conflict, whether it's leaning pro-British, pro-American, or pro-Axis, will be interesting. If it is the more democratically aligned Japan, with militarism not boiling over, then the Army Hawks, and bear in mind, it was the Army Hawks who were in favour of aligning with Germany and Italy. The Navy favoured a more neutral policy, knowing full well they couldn't afford to fight the British and the Americans, realistically, or a pro-British and American stance, aka dogpile whoever's fucking fighting the British and the Americans and take whatever spoils you can. Because, to be fair, that worked well last time. And if the Japanese do get, and at that point, either neutrality or involvement on the side of the Allies is more likely. And if that's what happens, then you're going to see this weird Japan in the post-war world that is ostensibly a democratic state, but kind of isn't, that holds a vast Commonwealth/co-prosperity sphere of Chinese nations that are definitely independent, they swear, gov, but really aren't.
Yeah, I don't think that's...
It's going to be a...
That is way too much resources for Japan to even try. The best way for them to do this, keep China broken up in warlord states and keep the status quo by constantly funneling supplies to whichever side that needs it. You keep a broken up China, Japan's free to do whatever it wants within that region.
Yeah.
That is how it should be done.
Yeah.
Because every single time Japan tries to challenge a united China, it has never went well.
Yeah.
So the best way to do it in the 20s, basically play Emperor Palpatine's game. Keep balancing between the different warlords.
Execute Order 1937.
Just play all sides. Make them fight each other for as long as you can.
Okay, so just the concert of Europe then, but Asian.
There was the thing is there was literally a concert of Asia. It was called the Chinese Powers Agreement, and the various powers had a conference they could call if anything was happening in China. One was called in the aftermath of the Marco Polo Bridge incident.
Yes, and Chiang Kai-shek didn't want to go.
Which was dumb of him.
He had to be dragged, kicking and screaming.
But
to meet
dragged
Mao.
dragged he was.
Indeed.
Oh no! I'm talking about the ones where the outside powers get involved. The one where the various signatories of the Shanghai Accords, France, US, Italy, all them show up.
Oh, that was irrelevant. Those countries didn't really do much anyway. You know, Chinese-U.S. relationships also not at a very good period or good state at that time. I wonder why. It's almost like they signed a anti-Chinese act.
And on that, thank you everyone for watching. Thank you for coming. I hope you've all enjoyed this alternate history dive. I know
Yeah, you heard it here first, folks. Fleet likes it when you come. So keep coming.
Stop. Look, I'm going to TwitchCon in at the end of the month, so I'd really prefer if you didn't rile things up too much.
How nice. TwitchCon.
I get to be on a panel. I'm excited.
You don't.
I'm very excited.
I'm back in Canada for a holiday. Now
Yep.
that Golden Week's around, I finally get to go on holiday.
Yep. Take care, everybody.
I remember, Bleed
No,
is a discount Markiplier.
that was not where
He
I was
does not have the
expecting.
gravitas.
I was not expecting
Exactly,
you to go
hence the
that
discount.
way.
He's the Timu own Markiplier.
No. That's giving him too much credit.
Will I stream it? Will I stream the game after this? No. The post Friday ramblings is not streamed. There are streams
Hey,
tomorrow.
you can if you want.
There's a single player stream tomorrow, which is probably going to be Transport Fever 2 or All the Waves 3, and then there will be a multiplayer stream on Sunday, which we will see what happens. Take care, everyone. Hope you've all enjoyed, and I'll catch all of you who are just
very
pure
good friend
YouTube.
in Rome called Bigger.
Because...
Yes.
Oh dear, classic.